I am about to do something extremely controversial. I am going to film a review. Wait, hold on a sec. Since when have reviews become Oh, right. The whole Marquez drama. I'm integrating this segment into this video because I needed to address it, but also I think I need to remind the general public exactly how a review works because seriously, after how long has it been? A month? A couple weeks? I don't know. I've lost track of time. But however long it's been since Marquez came out with his reviews of the Fisker Ocean and the Humane AI pin along with the Rabbit R1, it is quite obvious that they are all negative reviews, and it appears that for whatever reason, it seems like the internet seems to have a problem with Marquez doing a proper review. Especially this one Twitter user in particular, suggesting that posting a negative review on a product is completely unethical. What? It's unethical to help people save their money and not buy bad products that could affect their lives negatively or affect their wallets and their financial livelihoods negatively. It's also unethical to prevent potential scams as well, because usually scams will give you bad products, and so it's also unethical to, I guess, well, prevent scammers from selling products to people. Huh? That's unethical? So before we get into this review of the Pixel 6 Pro, that's what this video is supposed to be about, I want to quickly address something about the topic of reviews. I have filmed reviews in the past, be it reviews on MacBook Pros and Dell XPSs, which for the most part, those reviews, pretty positive. I've even made a positive review on this device here, my iPhone XS Max, and you know how much I love this thing. And I gave a somewhat neutral review of my 13 Pro Max. Usually I try to keep my reviews neutral, not overly positive, but not overly negative either. That was the case with my 13 Pro Max. That was sort of the case with my iPad, though it still leaned mostly negative. But I, myself, have even done negative reviews in the past. You guys remember my Windows rants? And you want to know something funny about those rants? Yeah, slash reviews? They are technically reviews. I am giving you my genuine experience with both Windows 10 and Windows 11 in both of those rants. Yeah, it turns out people in the comment section really happen to agree with me. The like to dislike ratio is, for the most part, pretty darn positive, and I get a lot of comments that are actually agreeing with me. In fact, many thanking me for actually pointing out that Windows truly is a terrible operating system and needs to be completely reworked. So is it an overly negative review? Yes. And is Microsoft not going to like that? Yeah, Microsoft actually doesn't. I have the feeling Microsoft themselves has actually watched it because they've screwed around with my account before. And actually, when I was setting up my Dell XPS, I had to log into Microsoft and uncheck this. To sum up what the box was, I really wished I'd taken a picture of it, but it was basically along the lines of, "We hate you." I'm not actually joking. That's why I wish I got my camera to take a picture of the actual box I had to uncheck. It was basically along the lines of, "Screw you, and because we want to screw you so much, we're not going to let you secure your laptop." Dang it, why did I have to be so angry and frustrated with that I forgot to take a picture? But yeah, that happened, and Microsoft was not happy about it. And that's why a lot of people are very mad and upset about Marquez's controversial reviews about how negative they are. And the truth is, the reason why the products suck is not because of Marquez Brownlee. It's because of the people who made the product. The way a review is supposed to work is the product speaks for itself. The product literally does all of the talking. What we, the reviewers, are just a microphone. That's it. We, as long as we're doing our jobs properly, which in the case of Marquez, yes, he is doing it properly, we are just the microphone for the product to speak for itself. That's how a review works, and that is exactly what I have done in all of my reviews. My Windows rants, literally the operating system has spoken for itself, and from what it described, appears Windows is pretty darn terrible to the point where it needs to go back to the drawing board. And then my positive reviews of the XPS and the MacBook Pro 16-inch, the M1 Pro version to be precise, yeah, they deserved every bit of praise they got. The product spoke for itself, and you can watch pretty much any other review on the internet as well. For the most part, MacBook Pros got a lot of praise, and many people still love them. I'm still using my M1 Pro MacBook Pro, and I'm editing this very review on that M1 Pro MacBook Pro. Enough enough of this side tangent. I just have to get this out of the way. Negative reviews can be ethical. And if a company goes bankrupt because of a bad product, well, I mean, sucks to be them. They should have put out a better product. When it comes to consumers spending their real hard-earned money, they want to make sure they're getting their money's worth. And if that brand who's selling a product is not giving the consumer their money's worth, well, then that should be the brand's problem. Not my problem if a company goes bankrupt because of a bad review. Honestly, if Microsoft were to fail today just because of my own negative reviews on Windows, I would not have a problem with that. I don't want bad products. I don't think anybody wants bad products. Now, would I rather Microsoft fail? No. I would rather see them improve, but if they fail because of their big mistakes, well, we'll know why, and I'm not responsible for it. They should have made a better product. So, alright, the whole what is a review and are reviews ethical side tangent aside, it's now time to dig into the Pixel 6 Pro. So, you might recall on April Fool's Day, I have uploaded a video where I had actually taken my SIM card out of my iPhone XS Max and put it here into this Google Pixel 6 Pro. And no, that was not an April Fool's joke. I have actually used this the entire month of April. You can ask my friends from the iTunes Fanboy podcast. They can confirm. It wasn't until literally 4 minutes after midnight on May 1st is when I pulled my SIM card out of this. My SIM card is now back in my XS Max. I've had it in my XS Max since 4 minutes after midnight on May 1st. I'm back to my XS Max, and honestly, I am so grateful for that. But that's not what this review is about. It's about the Pixel 6 Pro. I did this challenge because I basically have been away from Android for about 4 years at this point, and truth is, I kind of lost touch. I didn't really know exactly what was going on in the Android space and if they made any major changes from where I've last seen them back 4 years ago. And so I decided, all right, we're going to find an Android phone, a high-end flagship, because that's the type of phones I use. I use high-end flagships, like a XS Max or a 13 Pro Max as my camera. So I looked on the internet to find a relatively affordable, used high-end flagship phone, and I eventually settled for the Pixel 6 Pro. The reasons being, for once, Google has actually turned around their trend of making terrible phones for the price. That was my number one problem with Pixels. They were not worth the money. Well, okay, some other Pixels had some serious problems where, money aside, they were just bad phones. But for the most part, a general consensus around the Pixel before the Pixel 6 series was they were just bad phones for the money, unless you went for the Pixel A series. Those were budget phones that, for the most part, I can say were worth their money. But the original Pixel, the Pixel 2, Pixel 3, Pixel 4, and 5, they were not worth their price tags. And that is why, if I had them in hand, which I didn't, I would give them bad reviews. They were not worth their price tags. Pixel 6 finally turned that around. And so, because I was impressed with the Pixel 6 just from impressions a few years ago, I decided, all right, let's actually see what Google has made. And did they actually turn around the Pixel series? This review is going to answer a lot of personal questions I had about Android when it came to how has it changed in 4 years? Has Google actually finally fixed the Pixel line with this phone? And another thing that I wanted to answer for myself was, is this better than Samsung? Because I was a really big Samsung fanboy once upon a time, and I am not now because they failed to impress me literally every single phone they've made after the Galaxy S10. What a shame. Seriously, S10 was the last great Samsung phone. With a lot of these questions out of the way, I'm first going to get into the Pixel 6 Pro as a smartphone. How is it just as a smartphone, not considering the competition? And then I'm going to answer my questions. So, to be transparent, I bought this Pixel 6 Pro off of Swappa. It's basically eBay, but where you can actually get confirmed serial numbers of the specific device, so that way you don't have to worry about scams and such. Also, Swappa's general pricing compared to eBay is actually much better. I picked up this Pixel 6 Pro for around $230, excluding shipping. So $230 for a Pixel 6 Pro, not bad. And this particular spec is the white back with the little gray bar up here. We'll get into design a little more. It's the white version with 128 gigs of storage. I believe 256 was available for these. Google had an interesting method of storage configurations when these came out. If you didn't really care the color of your phone and you just wanted the basic boring black, the basic boring black comes with 3 different storage options. options being 128, 256, and 512. But if you went for the white one, then you only had 2 storage options, which was 128 and 256. This is the 128 model. Honestly, the prettiest color they had out of the entire Pro lineup, the champagne color, that was only available with 1 storage configuration, 128 gigs. It was literally a trade-off of, do you want more storage? Well, then you have to have a more boring color option. But if you want a much nicer color option, then you have to lose your storage. I don't like that, but oh well. I mean, the white is okay. I definitely prefer this over the black option. This was the one I got. It's the one in white, 128 gigs, and I paid about $230 for it. That's excluding shipping. Because this was a used phone, there is a few minor wear and tear bits on this phone that were not caused by me and were caused by the original owner. There's this deep gouge on the display screen that, for the most part, it's easy to ignore. It's towards the top of the phone and I could easily ignore it, especially when the display is on. I can't see it with the display on. And then on the side, right by the SIM card tray, I have no idea what happened to that thing, but something happened to the side of this. Those are really the only wear and tear bits on this phone, and I bought it knowing that it had these defects. I'm not going to complain about wear and tear too much, although there is one more wear and tear thing that I've noticed that was not described on the listing. Hear that shaking? Something's loose on the inside. If I had to guess, it might be one of the cameras, but I can't confirm. So when I unboxed this thing, it was pretty much your standard Pixel 6 unboxing, minus the fact that it's used. The owner gave me the original box that this came with right here, and it included the phone itself, the quick start guide, a SIM injector tool, and actually he decided to include the original cable for this thing, which I'm going to give a quick note to anybody who's reselling their phones, be it on Swappa or eBay. If the cable you're going to include is so disgusting to the point where it has tears, or it's so dirty, or it feels kind of slimy, don't even bother putting it in the box. If you want to include a cable, then just go buy another one and put it in the box. Don't put the original cable in the box if it is that disgusting and in that terrible condition. I actually thought it was not safe to use, and as a result, I ended up just tossing it and using my own charging cables because I actually thought that thing could potentially start a fire. It was not safe to use. So be advised, if you're selling used phones, if you're going to include a cable, please don't put in the original one if it's all junky and torn and really used and greasy and grimy. Yeah, don't do that. That is just disgusting, and nobody is going to use the cable if that's the cable that's included. That's what came in the box. Let's talk about the phone. In terms of the design of this thing, this is one of my biggest reasons why I wanted to get the Pixel for this challenge. I do not like where the Android space has gone in terms of phone design. Take a look at it. Do any of their designs remind you of anything? Anything at all? If you happen to be an Android fan that despises Apple, you'll probably see a completely unique and original design. If you're a human being, you see an iPhone clone. Seriously, look at all the phones. If you're a human being, you can tell. They all borrowed many design characteristics from the iPhone because, apparently in today's phone culture, now it's who can make the best iPhone clone. I hate that lack of originality, and it seems like Google is literally the only brand left that is attempting some originality. I don't understand how people actually don't like the visor design here because truly there are so many benefits. One, the design is clean. It's my #1 complaint with the iPhone lineup as of right now, and because the rest of the Android market is literally a bunch of mindless copycats, there's not really any phone out there that will have a clean design, well, ever since this came out. And now, this actually has a clean, streamlined design where all the cameras are arranged in this nice bar here. The bar is completely blacked out so you can't even see the camera lenses. Oh, it's a novel concept, right? A clean design. And because actually a benefit that this has over my iPhone, because the camera bump spans horizontally like this, actually there's no wobble. There's no wobble of this phone on a desk. Meanwhile, my iPhone XS Max and my 13 Pro Max, they both have a ton of wobble on the desk. That is one benefit to doing it this way. In terms of color scheme that they picked out, in terms of the white here, there's one aspect about this color scheme that I don't like, and it's the fact that they chose to have an extra tone shift right here. The part of the phone above the visor here, this is not actually white, this is gray. I don't know how well that appears on camera, but this tip up here is actually gray, while the rest of the phone is white down here. I don't like that. To me, it kind of makes it seem like the phone has aged a little bit as you got some color shift. I just don't like that. I don't think it works well. I would have preferred that they would have just left this white up here. Yeah, you'd lose the two-tone contrast, but honestly, if you want a two-tone contrast, go with the champagne color. That is literally the best two-tone contrast that they've made. Turning to the sides of the phone here, there's one major complaint that I do have with the phone, and it's the button layout. And unfortunately, I had this complaint with literally every single Android device out there. I can't think of any other Android device that still does it the way Apple does it. See, one thing that I like about my iPhone when it comes to button layout is you have the main power button on the side right here, but then you also have your volume buttons on the opposite side of the phone. This actually makes it really easy for me to do a bunch of things, like I can now feel which button is volume up and which is down without having to guess, am I over the volume buttons or the power buttons? Yeah, that's happened to me before, where I try to turn up the volume, but instead I keep hitting the power button and it results in me taking a bunch of pictures. Yeah, not convenient. But also having buttons on the opposite side of the phone makes it much easier to perform other two-button commands like screenshots. How do you take a screenshot on an iPhone? All you need is your thumb and your finger. Oh, look at that. I just took a screenshot of my lock screen. And it wasn't even that difficult. Like, look, I can hold the phone like this. And I took a picture of the screen. Meanwhile, with the Pixel here, the volume buttons and the power button are on the same side of the phone. Meaning, I can't do what I just did with the iPhone. But also, another problem that I especially have with this is the fact that they're on the right side. When it comes to pushing multiple buttons to try to take a screenshot, typically you need multiple fingers. Like with the iPhone's case, you just need your thumb and your index finger. With this, because I am right-handed, and I'm assuming most people are right-handed, all of these buttons are only able to be pressed by the thumb. So if you want to take a screenshot, good luck trying to push the power button and the volume buttons to take a screenshot at the same time with your thumb. It's just not easy to do that. I found that I keep having to switch hands to take a screenshot, so that way I can use my fingers here to push the power button and the volume up button to take the screenshot. And again, I'm typically right-handed. I usually hold my phone in my right hand. So that means I have to switch my hand every time I want to take a screenshot. And again, whenever I want to raise the volume of my device, sometimes I keep hitting the power button, and as a result, because of the double click the power button, something that I actually like, is it'll quick launch the camera and then it'll start taking a bunch of pictures in my pocket. So as I am unsuccessfully trying to raise the volume of my device, I am also wasting a bunch of storage on my phone because of all of the pictures and videos that I am accidentally taking in my pocket. So convenient. Why does every Android manufacturer insist on this? It's just bad design. Honestly, that is one of the most annoying things about this phone. Just the fact that the buttons are on the same side and I can't take a screenshot with my right hand. So I need to empty my left and then use my two fingers to... It's bad design. This is why iPhone has always done it where the power button's on one side, volume is on the other. It annoys me so much that Samsung actually used to do it the way Apple does. In fact, actually, it was Apple who copied Samsung on moving the power button from the top of the phone to the side. That was also a good idea. But Samsung, for whatever dumb reason, has decided to move the volume buttons to the same size as the power button. Why? It's so difficult to use now. It's just bad design. So I will harp on any smartphone manufacturer that decides to do this. It's just not easy for one-handed use, and especially if you put them on the right side, which is where most Android smartphone companies put them. Our right hands are not able to take screenshots single-handed. I have to move it to my opposite hand, and yeah, you get the point. It's bad design. Stop doing this, Android makers. This is bad design. Coming down here, we have a USB-C port, a port that I wish my XS Max had. iPhones finally have it. I'm still going to harp on Apple for being late for that, but it does have a USB-C port, and also your speakers are at the bottom. You'll find your SIM card right here, and literally nothing else on the side. And I guess that's going to turn us to the display, which, minus the defect in this, because remember, this is a used phone, and I bought this knowing it's a used phone. Defect aside, the display is pretty darn great. It's a 120 hertz panel, something that I absolutely love, that I wish my XS Max had, but again, not a necessity. And then the OLED colors on this panel are also beautiful. So OLED, 120 120 hertz. Okay, we're definitely on the right track in terms of making a decent display. And actually, something that I did not expect that I'd like so much is actually the taller aspect ratio. When I went back to my XS Max, I actually realized that I kind of missed having the taller aspect ratio. I'm not entirely sure why. It might have something to do with scrolling through Twitter or YouTube. It might have something to do with that, but I found that I kind of actually like the taller aspect ratio just a little bit. Sure, that means reachability has become a lot more difficult, and I resort to having to hold the phone this way when I want to reach the top. But in terms of actually needing to reach the top, I don't typically have to do it that often because of software design. When it came to scrolling for notifications or the control center on this, I didn't have to reach the very top of the phone to bring down the notification panel. I can be at the middle of the phone here and just swipe down like that. Now, if I'm in an application, then I do have to go to the top of the phone to do it, which is not convenient. But at least from the home screen here, I can just swipe down from the middle and voila, I have access to my notifications, and I can swipe down even further to bring the control panel a little more closer to my thumb. It's not exactly the friendliest one-handed reachability mode, but it's not bad. It's not terrible. And having functionality like that makes the taller aspect ratio a little easier to deal with. Also, I found that I think this is actually narrower than my iPhone XS Max, so I think it fits in my hand a little better. And I guess one other thing about the display that I'm sad to see go, it's a dying trend when it comes to flagship smartphone displays. I actually like the curved edges. Yes, I'm not actually joking. I liked the curved edges. Now, I get what people are complaining about when it comes to accidental touches, and unfortunately, yeah, I have experienced accidental touches on this, and actually, the biggest frustration I had was when it came to scrolling. When I'd go to scroll, the meaty part of my thumb here would rest against that curved edge, and as a result, I just couldn't scroll. So, yeah, I get that it is a bit of an annoyance, but with software tuning, I believe this can be overcome, and there are some phones out there who have done excellent software tuning to their curved edges, and as a result, it has become pretty much a non-issue. And genuinely, I love the curved edges of this phone from a design standpoint, and yeah, they could have done a better job when it comes to accidental touch software tuning. I don't even think that's that hard. There's algorithms out there to detect accidental touches. I'm a bit disappointed that because of this reason alone, we're seeing a dying trend when it comes to curved flagship smartphone displays. Really, I'm sad to see it go, and I've enjoyed my time with the curved display on this. Yeah, I know. Extremely controversial, but I really do like it, despite the accidental touches. And now I guess we really are going to start talking about the software. So this is the first time I've ever actually used Google Pixel's base Android software skin. It's not fully stock Android like every other Android enthusiast is going to try to make you believe. It's not actual stock Android. Google has put in their own software exclusives into this, and it's not stock Android. If it was stock Android, basically Google would just put literally base Android and do nothing to modify it to make it special for their phone. So because there are some software exclusives on this phone, it is not technically stock Android. Design perspective, it is stock Android, but feature set wise, it is not. And when it came to using some of those Pixel software exclusives compared to Samsung software exclusives, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really utilize pretty much any of Google's Pixel software exclusives at all. The only one I've really tried was their call screening feature, but I found that despite how amazing that sounds on paper, it actually just does not work in the real world. Because when I've had people actually call me, and I get a lot of spam calls, a lot, so I just have a filter set to just hang up when it comes to unknown numbers. So I decided, all right, an unknown number came through, so let's try it out. And it turned out it was somebody who actually really did need to contact me, and they were not happy with me once I finally accepted the call. They were actually very mad at me for pulling that on them. They did not like it. So when it comes to people who you do eventually want to answer the call, yeah, they don't like it when you do that. You just creep them out. You really scare the crap out of them, to be honest. And then when it comes to the people who you're going to decline anyway, well, for the most part, there's already a setting to just filter out unknown numbers and decline potential spam numbers. So yeah, the call screening feature, I never used it aside from those attempts. But after that, that, I discovered, I can't use it because for the most part, it just doesn't work in the real world. And then there's many other software exclusives like Magic Eraser and Photos. I have never even touched that. I don't even know how to activate it, and I have no interest in even learning how to activate it. It turns out a lot of the software exclusives when it comes to Pixel, I just don't use it. I don't use those software exclusives. Don't get me wrong, they're neat party tricks and it's cool to actually see it in action, but when it comes to actually using the phone for your day-to-day life, you'll realize you never really use any of those features unless you're a smartphone enthusiast. That's Pixel software exclusives out of the way. In terms of Android, this is the biggest reason why I got this phone is because I wanted to see how has Android changed in 4 years. Turns out they haven't, really. They haven't changed pretty much anything at all. And my complaints with Android are literally all still here. None of my complaints have been addressed. They are all still here. My biggest complaint, something that again is sadly controversial, the notification system. It's trash on this thing. It's not exclusive to the Pixel. It's exclusive to Android in general. Truly, the notification management is trash. And I know what you're thinking. Dude, what are you talking about? iOS has always been garbage. Hold on. Yes, once upon a time, iOS's notification management system was actually really bad. But once iOS 12 came around and actually decided to organize the notifications, that is when Android's notification system starts to look very bad in comparison. Yes, the number one thing when it comes to Android users snapping at me for, no, Android's notification system is superior, their number one reasoning is, well, it groups them better. Well, I've happened to have had a lot of group notifications come in this thing in the past, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't think so. And yes, I use an iPhone and I have experienced the previous method, iOS 11 style notification system, where it literally listed every single notification down a long, never-ending list, and they're in these huge bubbles, and yeah, I get it. I have used iOS 11's notification system. It is bad. I'm not denying that. But we're not on iOS 11 anymore. We're on iOS 17, and their notification system has dramatically improved since then. Compared to this, my major complaint with this is when it comes to notification stacking, it doesn't stack all types of notifications. For example, whenever I get YouTube notifications, it never stacks them. Meanwhile, it'll stack my emails, and okay, what if I actually want to go into that stacked group of notifications? I've actually found I've had a bit of a problem trying to get into the stack. Sometimes I can tap the arrow and it will open up, but sometimes when I tap it, it ends up just opening up the application and taking me out of the notification center, which is the complete opposite of what I wanted to do. I wanted to view the notification in the notification center instead it just took me directly to the app. That's not what I wanted. So because sometimes I can't just tap the arrow and it shows me in more detail the notification, I've tried swiping down because sometimes that works, except again, sometimes it works. Other times it'll actually just do that reachability function to enable closer access to the control panel where you can toggle Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and such. Again, not what I wanted to do. So I'm finding that very unintuitive and at the same time still dealing with my other major complaints of the notification system. Being the fact that there are so many freaking notifications for the things that just don't matter. Why does this thing insist on telling me what the weather is every hour? Seriously, every hour it has the need to tell me what the weather is, and it will ping me for it. And yes, I know there are settings where you could supposedly turn that off, except wait, you can't actually completely turn it off. You can set it up so it doesn't make a noise, but it will still always take up space every hour in your notification system. It will always come in to tell you what the weather is. Despite that, I didn't even ask for it, and genuinely, I could care less about what the weather is at that given moment. If I want to know what the weather is, then I will go to a dedicated place to find it. I don't need it shoved in my face 24/7. And this extends to more than just the weather app, obviously. It happens when you charge the phone. It happens when you plug it in to do something else. It happens for the dumbest of reasons. It happens when you turn on Do Not Disturb mode. Yes, it has the need to give you a separate notification to let you know Do Not Disturb is on. These were complaints that I've had back before I switched to iOS. Unfortunately, these haven't gone away, and I cannot turn them off. I can get them to only come in quietly, but I can never fully turn them off. And that is annoying. Because another thing that the Pixel does that I actually think is cool, when I have a notification, see the always on display here, the clock right here? Usually it will minimize up into something up near this weather widget right here and display my notifications there, and it'll also remain true when the always on display is on. That to me is a sign that I have notifications to check. So whenever I get those useless notifications, oh, okay, let's go check them out. Oh, it's the weather, or I'm fast charging the phone, or I'm slow charging the phone, or oh, I plug it into a computer. Yeah, wow. Thank you for notifying me that, like I even asked. It gets really annoying really fast, and I was not happy to return to that. And I am so grateful I am back on my iPhone where I am not getting those useless notifications. I can plug in my phone to a slow charger. It doesn't give me a notification telling me I'm slow charging. It doesn't give me a notification when I'm fast charging or wireless charging. Heck, it doesn't even give me a notification when I plugged it into a computer. A novel concept, right? So yeah, that is truly my number one annoyance when it comes to the software of Android. And that is why iOS notification management is just plain better. Not only does it now handle stacked notifications better and allows you to actually, when you click and hold the notification to get more detail, it doesn't just take you to the app, it just gives you more detail, but also it doesn't give you notifications for the most useless things. And when it does happen to give you a notification of something that you don't want, there is a setting you can go into the phone and turn it off completely, as if that notification never even existed. Not with this thing. And in terms of the rest of the software, it's actually pretty much okay. There's nothing really noteworthy to explain. The truth is, I don't hate Android. I've never hated Android. In fact, I survived a whole month with this and I didn't really complain all that much. The only times I really started to complain was when I did have my gripes about a couple of the notification thing and the various hardware aspects of this phone that sadly the entire Android smartphone market has. I can't change that, unfortunately. It was really small things that were getting me upset about this phone. But was there anything that actually completely blew me away and made me think, oh, Android is just so much better than iOS? I kid you not, literally nothing about the software made me think this is better than iOS. It's not to say it's bad, because it's not bad. The software itself is not bad. But because I have the choice between iOS and Android, I think it's obvious where I'm going to put my money. Because iOS, for the most part, does everything I need it to, and it caters towards my preferences, while this, for the most part, does everything I need it to, but it does not cater towards my preferences, especially when it comes to notification management. I know I'm going beyond that for quite a long time. Speaking of notifications, I need to check mine for a quick sec. Oh, podcast is out. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, let's do a quick notification comparison. Let's see. What are all the notifications I have? I have iMessage, I have Twitter, I have YouTube, I have email, I have that Subway one that I haven't dismissed yet. It was just letting me know my order was complete. That is a notification I like to have, knowing when my order is complete and that it's ready for pickup. Podcasts. So yeah, again, nothing really useless. It doesn't give me, oh, here's the weather every hour, or here's where you parked your car. That's another one that drove me nuts. But seriously, when it comes to actually using Android, the thing is, I use it no differently than iOS. In fact, you might have noticed my home screen here, this is really the default Pixel layout. I mean, okay, sure, there's some extra apps up top here because it put them on a separate page, but for the most part, I didn't mess with them at all. Android's customization, that is the number one thing that I know Android users love. You can customize it to your heart's content. It is a pro to Android, I am admitting that, but it is not a pro that I take advantage of as a smartphone user. Customization usually is not one of my biggest worries when it comes to using and owning my smartphone. My biggest thing when it comes to using a smartphone is, does it actually work? I could care less about customizing and putting each individual button precisely where I want it. No, I don't care about that. What I care about is using the phone to actually get stuff done. And yes, you can use this to get a lot of stuff done, but it doesn't change the fact that iOS does it better because optimization, the App Store, and because, yes, you can't do as much customization with this thing. That is true. That is a con to this. It is not a con that affects me at all, and I could care less. And it is not a problem to me that basically the whole software experience is is dictated by the company that made the device, which means, yes, you have to get all of your apps through the App Store without exception. Meanwhile, you can sideload apps onto this. You can download apps from a web browser on this thing. Heck, you can do it from another device, download it on your computer and just boot it into this or whatever. That's cool. That doesn't add any value to me at all. It's a preference thing. Why do I use iOS? It's really mostly a preference thing. Does that make Android bad? No. In fact, for the most part, I pretty much enjoyed, aside from the minor gripes I have with like the notification system, I pretty much enjoyed my software experience when it comes to using Android. It's just not catered towards what I actually care about. And I guess the last thing that I want to talk about when it comes to this phone is the number one thing that every Pixel user has the need to get so snotty about. Let's talk about the cameras. Now, I have taken a bunch of pictures with this phone. I haven't done anything side by side, but for the most part, I don't think I need to. And just so you guys know, yeah, photos are pretty decent on this thing. This thing does take pretty good pictures. Not gonna lie, it has a pretty good color science. And when I do portrait mode stuff, the blur is pretty good. And yeah, photos are pretty good. Now, yes, there are hardware and software differences between this camera and this, be it megapixel count and, well, obviously different software tunings, but that does not mean that because this thing can take good photos, that does not mean this thing takes trash photos in comparison. Is there a difference? Yes, there is a noticeable difference. Is it meaningful? That is the thing Pixel users just can't seem to get a grip about. Are the differences meaningful? No, they are not. That is what I have found time and time again when I have compared pictures I've taken on this to this. Is there differences? Yes, there are. Are they meaningful? No, they don't mean anything at all. The differences hardly matter to me. And just so you guys know, this thing actually has had some issues when it came to taking some pictures. Yes, I'm not joking. I've done a portrait mode photo once, and actually it did not do a great job at masking my hair out. So as a result, yeah, it has its hits and its misses. It's not perfect. Night mode is also pretty good too, but again, even that has its own hits and misses. In fact, I tried getting a shot of the moon because it was very Halloween-esque. I know, in the middle of April, Halloween-esque. It was very spooky, dark, creepy night. There was an aura that I wanted to actually try to catch, and unfortunately, this thing did not do it. This thing did not capture the aura of that spooky night. It didn't do it. It failed. I'm being honest with you. So yeah, the camera, it's pretty good, and it has its misses, just like every other smartphone. But here comes the number one thing that I know Pixel users hate when I bring up. Photos are literally only half of what the camera system is capable of. Oh, do Pixel users and Pixel fans, oh, do they hate it when I bring up video performance. Because seriously, to call this the best camera in a smartphone in the entire world, the best one, there's none that tops this, well, photos are only 50% of what this thing's capable of. How about videos? And that's where this thing actually starts to downfall. I've uploaded a video on the vlog channel. It's a 10-ish minute vlog, 11 days in the Pixel Challenge, and that was just to test out the video recording capabilities of this. And actually, I found that it had some pretty bad focus issues towards the end. It completely lost focus with my face at the end, and it just did not look good at all. I also was not happy with how it was processing colors. And again, it's a personal thing. I know colors and such are subjective and all that, but I was just not happy with the result that I got out of this. Now, it didn't have a major issue that I have constantly had with Samsung's, where doing long video recordings, it will literally stop mid-recording and start a brand new file, and as a result of that, you lose a few seconds of video footage. That is extremely annoying. This hasn't done that to me, but overall, I was still not happy with the video performance. Yes, this phone has much better video performance when it comes to camera. Photos, they're fine. Both of these phones take great photos. Are they different? Yes. Is the difference meaningful? No. Nobody cares, except for camera snobs. And even then, you're only comparing photos when you're saying, oh, Pixel is best camera on a smartphone. I hate it when these people completely forget the entire concept of video performance. It's convenient how they never bring that up because they have to know that when it comes to video performance, iPhone has always been king. It's another reason why I use iPhones, by the way. Not just because of software preferences, but also because of video performance. That's my whole thing about the camera. I've never said it was a bad camera. I've never said that the photos that this thing takes are trash. The Pixel has always taken good photos, and it's had its misses. I've always said that. Where I have always come in, however, and it is the thing that Pixel fans absolutely hate it when I bring it up, is you cannot ignore the other functionality that this camera has, and that's video performance. And video performance is just not up to snuff. And I guess the last thing that I guess everyone's going to want me to touch on is battery life. Battery's good. Battery is really good. Don't know what the remaining capacity of this is after being used for 2 years, but it has not been a problem. Whatever remaining battery capacity it has left has not been a problem because I will literally go 2 days on this without charging it. Meanwhile, my XS Max, I actually have to plug in every night, but that's because it's got a smaller battery and also it actually desperately needs a replacement. I use that thing a crap ton. Another thing that I guess I should point out that I should have brought it up earlier. I want to talk about the in-display fingerprint scanner and something that drives me nuts about Android phones in general. See, I have this condition called eczema. It's a skin condition where my body does not produce enough skin, and as a result, it makes fingerprints a bit of a challenge for me, and sometimes fingerprints are a hit or miss. For example, Touch ID on the iPhone has never worked for me. I have never ever gotten Touch ID to work on an iPhone. I've gotten it to work on some iPads and MacBooks. When it comes to Touch ID on, it doesn't matter. 5S when it came out to the SE3 today, never works. I cannot get Touch ID to work with my fingerprints. Meanwhile, I've only had one failed attempt of the fingerprint scanner on this. Just one. But also, I have learned ever since I have switched to my Face ID iPhone, Face ID is actually more practical because, one, when it's cold out, I like to wear gloves because, well, it's cold and I don't have a heated steering wheel in my car like I did with my last one. So I like to wear gloves. Fingerprint scanners become a bit of a challenge when you wear gloves. Face ID is really helpful in that regards. I will always continue to bring this up on the internet. Whenever somebody brings up this debate about Touch ID versus Face ID, I want you to think about this. Not everybody has fingerprints. There are actually some people out there with no fingerprints. And not everybody has perfectly usable fingerprints like me. I have eczema. It makes fingerprint scanners hard for me. But last I checked, I have yet to meet a single person that doesn't have a face. Just saying. That is why Face ID will always win the biometric wars. It's just more practical. So I guess the questions that I've had finally have been answered. Has Android changed in 4 years? The truth is, it really hasn't. I don't really know anything necessary value that Android has brought towards, what are we on, 14? Are we on Android 13 or 14? I don't remember. About phone, Android version 14. Okay, so we are on Android 14. Yeah, the truth is, Android has not changed much in 4 years. If it has changed, it has not made any meaningful changes to make me reconsider using an Android device. Is Google Pixel better than Samsung? Honestly, I can't be sure because for the most part, this and the Samsung Galaxy S series are actually very comparable from a hardware perspective. Yeah, sure, Samsung's going to give you a gazillion X zoom camera on the Ultra series and an S Pen. I get it. There are going to be some differences like that. But for the most part, is this better than Samsung? I can't actually be certain. Genuinely think at this point it's personal preference. From my personal opinion, from what I've gathered from my past experiences with Samsung and using this for a month, I don't really have a preference towards either. This holds its own in some areas and Samsung holds their own in some others. The truth is, I found myself to be very indifferent about whether Google makes a better smartphone or whether Samsung makes a better smartphone. Ultimately, I still think their phones are not as good as the iPhone for some key reasons, like, again, the volume button placement. That's just one to name. But that question's been answered. I'm grateful that I did this challenge. After using this thing for about a month, I'm grateful that I did this challenge and that I got to experience the other platform compared to what I'm used to. And something that the US government and the EUs really seem to think, the US government in particular, they think, oh my, Apple makes it impossible. They make it literally impossible to switch from an iPhone to an Android device. Why? Because of the ecosystem. I am invested in the Apple ecosystem. You guys should know that. I have a MacBook, an iPad. I'm wearing an Apple Watch, as you can see. I have AirPods, 2 different sets of AirPods, by the way. And I have a HomePod Mini. I use Apple devices in my daily life. And I am very heavily invested into the Apple ecosystem. Oh my goodness, was it impossible to switch to this thing? Actually, it was very easy. Do you want to know how easy it was? Pop SIM card out of this, put it in here, and then just make sure that you sync your contacts to your Gmail. By the way, a lot of iPhone users actually link their Gmail to their Apple ID, so that way they can continue to sync their contacts. That way, when they're not on an Apple device, like a lot of Apple users also happen to be on Windows, because, well, stupid reasons, if you ask me. And as a result, being on Windows means they need access to Google services like Google Chrome, the Google Workspace in general. We use a lot of Google services, believe it or not, and that's the case with me. And so I link all of my contacts and calendar events. I link all that Gmail stuff to my iCloud and iCloud to Gmail. And so actually, that switch wasn't all that difficult. So, US government, Uncle Sam, is it impossible for an iPhone user to switch to an Android? No, I just did it. Now, yes, I'm switching back, but here's why. It's not because of the iPhone, it's because of Android. Android just does not cater to my needs. And I do have some frustration with things on the Apple side. There's things about macOS that I don't like. There's things about the iPhone that I don't like. But compared to those things and the things that I don't like about the Android side, and especially the Windows PC side, I will happily take an iPhone over their competition. I think the problem with the Android market today, because we've been noticing that their market share has been decreasing here in the US, I think the fundamental problem is Android has just stopped competing. Seriously, compare their phones to the iPhone. More and more do they appear to be more just like iPhone clones, and they do not stand out the way that they used to. I miss especially the year 2016, 2017. That was when, honestly, Android was at its peak. That was when we had Samsung getting competitive with cramming every single hardware and software feature into their phone. And that was also the case with so many other Android makers. They put so many unique things into their phone, and they try so many things in hoping that it would take off. And honestly, a lot of those things were actually useful. The market for choice was awesome back in 2016 and 2017. But the problem was, ever since the iPhone X came out, that was when Android OEMs stopped trying. They saw the success of the iPhone X. It was a dramatic change from the iPhones before it. And because of that, they wanted to capitalize off of that. And so they started making their iPhone X clones, and they have not reverted back to their old ways since. And as a result, the Android market has just gotten so bland. I can't really think of that many Android OEMs anymore, to be honest, because they've stopped trying. And also, because of this, a lot of Android OEMs have exited the market. We don't have LG anymore. We don't have HTC. Heck, OnePlus appears to be leaving the US market just by how much they've been trying here. And OnePlus was one of my favorites. Honestly, the reason why I think Android market share has not been doing well here in the US is because they stopped trying. They actually stopped trying to compete, and now all they're trying to do is make an iPhone clone, but maybe cheaper, or change a few things so that way, we don't get sued by Apple. And this lack of originality just makes me want to switch to Android less and less. The operating system, despite that I have my qualms with their notification system, it's fine. I can easily use that if that was what I was forced to use. But it's the lack of choice that I'm seeing now. Really, the only difference is, would you like to buy an iPhone interpreted by Samsung or interpreted by Google? Oh, no, Google's not really doing it that much anymore. Or interpreted by OnePlus or Oppo, or which iPhone clone interpretation do you want? That's what it's come down to. And I'm not impressed by it. And so as a result, I am going to continue to use my iPhone, because why else would I switch when the competition is just making a worse version of what I already have? That is why I think Android sales are down. Is it impossible to switch to Android? No. It's just the consumer market has decided we'd rather use iPhone and not use a clone. You get the picture. So overall, I like the Pixel 6 Pro. I do. Despite that, I have my major qualms like the volume buttons here and the bad video performance and the notification management system. Overall, this is a very good phone. Can I recommend you buying it today? Well, I mean, supposedly Google promised they're going to give you 5 years of software updates, and this is currently 2 years old, so I guess expect 3, maybe. But again, you should never buy a phone on the promise of software updates. You should never do that. But ultimately, I'm coming out of this as this is a good phone, and I'm going to be a little bit sad to see this go. I'm not going to bawl my eyes off because of it, but I'm going to be a little sad to see this go. But yes, I am going to sell this because I literally bought this for content and review purposes. I I genuinely have no use for an Android phone today. As a result, I am going to sell this back to the used market and get my money back. At least try to get my money back because, well, you know how the used market works. That's my review of the Google Pixel 6 Pro from an iPhone user's perspective. I'm glad to be back with my iPhone, but I am grateful that I gave this month-long challenge a shot. And also, quick message to Google, good job. I mean this, good job. You built a decent smartphone that actually got my attention, which for an Android smartphone maker, apparently it's actually really easy to do. It's just a lot of Android makers refuse to actually do it. They refuse to make a phone that actually piques my interest, and Google decided, all right, let's do it. Let's make an actual decent phone. Let's actually try this time. And they did it. You succeeded. Good job. Thank you for watching. Do me a favor and interact with the stuff below. My name is Alpha DeWolf. Random Alpha, signing out.